For this week's Smith Business Close-Up, we are on location here at the University of Maryland. Our guest is Gaurav Bhalla, who is an adjunct faculty member in Smith's marketing department. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Our topic is Lessons on Leadership from Poetry, and you have a new book. What made you write the book?
Well, the title of the book is Awakening a Leader's Soul, Lessons Through Immortal Poems. And the whole idea over here is that a leader is not just a mind. If you look at most of the contemporary leadership development programs, they're almost like pouring water into a vase, like an empty vessel. It's like you going to the gym, Jeff, and working out on your biceps. And, you may look like Popeye's cousin, but that's not going to make you very fit. So a leader, but what about the leader's heart? What about the leader's soul? They need to be awakened also. So the whole idea is to provide a framework for the leader to look within and also prepare for that role, not just the mind of the leader, but also the heart and the soul of the leader.
How open are most business people, business students to thinking about it in those terms?
Well, anytime you come up with something out of the box, and by the way, we live in a very funny world. Everybody says out of the box thinking is great. But the moment you think out of the box, they put you right back in the box and shut the lid and bolt it. I think anytime you come up with something that's a little discontinuous or adjacent to how people think, they're going to sort of sit back and scowl a little bit. But if you look at it, and if I ask you a simple question, who would you rather work for? A leader whose soul was awake or a leader whose soul was asleep? I'm pretty sure you'll answer a leader whose soul was awake. So the whole idea is that if you take Shakespeare's All the World's a Stage, we are called upon to do some roles. Leadership is a role. And there's a very interesting line in that poem that we have our exits and entrances. So this is election year. 8 years are over. President Obama entered. He is exiting. A leader enters and they exit. And so I think it is very important that in preparation for that role, the soul is also developed and the heart is also developed.
Are there particular poems or particular authors that you think business people, business students ought to be familiar with?
Well, the way we are approaching it is through a traditional way of looking at leadership first, the leadership literature. So what we did was we actually did a very formal analysis of the leadership literature. We identified about 20 to 25 key skills and competencies. We talk a little bit about those skills and competencies in the book, and then I pair those skills and competencies with an immortal poem. So to give you an example, Alfred Adler said it beautifully. We are not rich enough to afford egos, but we do have egos. And a leader of all people cannot afford to have an ego, because the moment you have an ego, you push people away, you stop the dialogue, you basically puncture trust. And there's a beautiful poem by Emily Dickinson which says, I'm a nobody. Are you a nobody too? That makes it the two of us. So the whole idea is when you read that poem, it's like a mirror to yourself. There's no way you can read that poem and not worry about, do I have an overbloated ego? Is that good for me? Is that good for the company? So that's the idea.
Are you focused more on older poems, the great works, or new writing?
That's a very, very interesting question you asked me. This book has global appeal. So we're trying to get a
cross-cultural
portfolio of poets from all over the world. But Jeff, you know that no matter what I do, someone or the other will say, but what about that poem? What about that poem? So there's a beautiful poem by Gibran which says, we are all prisoners. Some of us are in cells with windows and some of us are in cells without windows. And so the whole idea over here is to create this avenue by means of which we can provide a window, but not looking out at the world, but looking inside within the leader's own being, so that they can either confront their humanity or lack of it, but by awakening the soul, become a better leader. So we're trying for the real heavyweights, Whitman, Frost, and Shakespeare, and we're also trying to include some modern poets. But really, the most important thing is pairing the right poem with the theme, with the skill, the virtue, the competence.
Maybe it isn't just business people. Maybe some politicians and doctors and people in other walks of life could benefit.
Frankly speaking, Jeff, this book is not targeted just at business people. It is targeted at anybody who's responsible for people. There's a brilliant saying in literature, poets are the senators of our souls. And organizations are people. Leaders are people. They have souls. So technically speaking, leaders should be the senators of the souls of the companies that they lead. Any company, whether it's a political party, whether it's a hospital, whether it's an army, whether it's a corporation, non-profit. So you're absolutely right.
Tell me the title of the book and when it's out.
Awakening a Leader's Soul. Lessons through Immortal Poems. Fingers crossed. I'm working very hard. It will definitely be available in the last quarter of this year.
Gaurav Bhalla joining us here at the Smith School of Business. Thank you very much.
Thank you.